Hi Libra, it's Erin Scott here. Welcome to your September 2019 Alchemy Scope. We're going to tap into your natural evolutionary process at this time frame. And we're going to go into 3 different modalities to understand the themes of growth for you. One is this art channeling that we're taking a look at now. This is a speeded up version of a process that I went into for you. Another is a divinatory message. And the third is your astrology for the month. Okay, so we're taking a look now at the artwork. I'm using pen to start, and we have from the R of Libra, the beginning of what's becoming a road down to the bottom of the sheet of paper. And what's coming out here at the bottom is the sense of it as I was drawing it is like a cityscape. And you can see that the road from the R is coming down like a hill, right? It's coming down to the ground level, down to the city from up on the mountain. Now, this is symbolic. It's not that you're all going to be traveling down to the city from living up on a mountain, but symbolically, this is speaking. Now we have this kind of blue pastel, what appears to be some sort of a mountain or a form. It could be water. We're gonna do the analysis after we look at the drawing emerge. But essentially, first we have the road, then we have the kind of cityscape down at the base, and then we have this kind of blue form that's coming up and over the road, by the way, which we're going to talk about. We have this green underline underneath Libra, the identity of Libra, the archetype of Libra. Green indicates growth, some sort of growth. But there's a very clean kind of horizontal line here. And you're going to note at the end of this artistic channeling that there's a simple aesthetic to the overall quality to what is occurring for you over the course of the cycle. So we're going to talk about that as well. You can see red is emerging. So down in this kind of cityscape, okay, where there are buildings, where there is population, where there is culture, there's also red, right? So we have all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 kind of points of red activity. We're going to talk about 6. But red indicates energy, movement, passion. There's activity there. There's activity down in the cityscape. And now you can see yellow is being filled in only at the road as it meets the horizon line, right? So the yellow is not running back up the road, up the hill. The yellow has only come into being hitting the horizon line, hitting the ground, okay? And now we have yellow above the green line, also underneath Libra's identity, okay? And let's see what else is coming through. There's at least one more thing that's emerging here. So you can see now that there's this kind of flesh color pastel, right? And it's coming up through the middle portion of the cityscape, and now everything's being filled in there with this flesh color, right? The buildings, the ground structures. And it's coming up, and then this bubble of the flesh color is coming up and around the A of Libra. And it's also incorporating the top of the road. Do you see that? So we have this flesh color around the A and around the top of the road, right as it's beginning its journey down to the ground level here. So Libra, let's take a look at what this is. Let's do this analysis. Now, a note that I don't do as I'm drawing, as I'm channeling stuff coming through, the forms and the symbols, the colors and the various formations that are coming through, there's rarely analysis that's happening during me doing it. Sometimes there is. Sometimes there's definitive clarity about what's coming through. Other times there's not at all. There's none. Most often there's no holistic analysis done until later. Now, I've done these art scopes before where I do the reading right as I'm doing it, but I am finding that it's more advantageous for me to do the audio analysis after the artwork is complete, because it gives me time to research certain aspects of it, which is important, right? Now, there's several kind of interesting things here that I want to point out. Overall, the imagery of your picture, the narrative that's coming through for your month ahead, is kind of clean. There's a bit of, there's three kind of horizontal lines here. We have the black horizontal line at the lower third of the drawing, and then we have the yellow line and the green line underlining Libra at the top. So there's these kind of three horizontal aspects to this, and then there's like these two kind of angled, or actually three kind of angled, soft, curved, angled sections. One is the blue form, one is the road, and one is the flesh-colored connection between the cityscape down on ground level and the upper area of where Libra is, right? Where do I want to start? Let's start with the road, because that was the first thing that I drew. Now, I want to let you know that the road begins at the R of Libra, very specifically. And so I'm going to look up R here. There are numbers that connect to the alphabet. I think this was Pythagoras. This was like the Pythagorean alignment of numbers to alphabetic. Here we go. Libra, just hold on just one second. So with regards to R, all right, the alignment in the alphabet to R is the number 9. The number 9. Now, 9 is a number of a completion journey, right? A completion journey, a spiritual journey. It's a number of the humanitarian. It's the number of spiritual testing. It's the number of kind of a spiritual graduation point. It's the number of the hermit in the tarot. So there's this internalized spiritual processing aspect to the number 9. And that's where we're seeing the road begin, Libra. So what does that mean? Well, for me, what it means is that this month is about you, number 1, coming down off the mountain, coming down off the hill, coming down out of the hermit internalized process that you've been going through. Now, for a lot of you, you haven't been in a hermit phase. You've been social, you've been engaging, you haven't needed to withdraw. But for some of you, you have. And then for the rest of you that have had continued social interactions with your work, with your family, with your friends, etc., chances are high that you have been indeed going through a spiritual recalibration. Okay? So what this is indicating is perhaps a lot of you that have been experiencing more of an internalized processing are now ready. In the month of September, there's a transformation happening where your energy is ready to come, be the monk coming down off the mountaintop, in other words, right? Coming down from the monastery, so to speak, okay? And this road coming down is essentially activated once it's more engaged with a social dynamic, with a network of people, when there's engagement and exchange, Libra, okay? Now, very specifically, let's actually now move over to the A that's circled by that flesh color, okay? The first thing was the R and the road. The last thing was the A and the bubble. Now that flesh-colored bubble, for me, the flesh color was indicating human connection. The flesh color of that pastel linking the A with the cityscape, for me, was definitively connecting you to a new social engagement process that you're moving into. There's a new chapter for Libra about less isolation, less connection just with the immediate loved ones, and more connection with friends, extended networks, extended groups, etc. Okay? Now, A in the alphabet association, Pythagorean association, is the number 1. And the number 1 indicates the individual, the self, It also indicates new beginnings, a new story, initiation, innovation, right? So one is you as the self, and you as the self are wanting to connect with the cityscape, to come down off the mountain, to come out of your cave, you know? So there's indication here that indeed you're desiring, there's more of a desire to, number one, really go through a major lifestyle shift. So for some of you listening to this audio and video accompaniment, you might be really feeling the need for a real new chapter when it comes to your lifestyle. For some of you, you have been more withdrawn and you are ready for more overt engagement. For others of you, you have continued to be social because it's been obligated through the existing work place that you currently work with, the people that you work with at your workplace, or the kinds of work that you do might involve a lot of marketing or networking or cold calling or whatever that kind of thing is. But for some of you have had social engagement, but you have felt more isolated. And what this is indicating for those of you is that there's more of a desire for Libra to come down and connect, to come out of the house and connect. And there's more of a joy with it. And I say that because we have this yellow coloration on the road as it hits the ground. As it hits the ground level, that's when the yellow of that third chakra comes to life. The third chakra is you as a self, your identity, your willpower, your free will choice. You know, this is kind of your power gets highlighted here when you're engaging with people and when you're engaged in what I would call impassioned projects. That's the other thing here, Libra. The fact is we have kind of these 6 points of red emerging from this little cityscape. And red, of course, is first chakra. So it is issues such as survival, but of course it's our vital life force energy. You know, red indicates the flame within, you know, the vital life force source within us. But it certainly is about energy, action, movement, passion. What are we connected to? What lights our fire? Well, there's something about engaging more directly and overtly socially and via networks that's going to light your fire over the course of this month. Or it's beginning. The process of this transmutation is beginning this month, okay? Now, we also have 6, the number 6 represented with these red formations. And 6 indicates harmonic balance, 3 above, 3 below. It's like the 6-pointed star, right? And it indicates a harmonic between spiritual and material, the immaterial realm and the material realm, the non-physical realm and the physical realm. So 6 indicates harmonic between the immaterial realities and the material realities. But 6 also indicates practical aspects like finances, home, family, security. There's kind of a logistics aspect to 6, like having the harmonic of security, safety, money, finances, and family kind of handled, which is interesting because we have all this energy in Virgo, which we're going to talk about in the astrology. But for you, the number 6 and creating harmony is purely connected to, very clearly connected to the idea of networking, socialization, and exchanges with people, with others, having human connection that is dynamic, okay? So that's intrinsic to a certain harmony that you will find this month if you indeed follow these natural promptings for this action. Now, the other thing that's pretty interesting here is this big blue wave, because there's a part of me that actually doesn't see it as water. There's a part of me that doesn't see it as a wave. But I rather see it almost as a mountain, believe it or not. And I feel into it as a mountain. And I feel into it as a spiritual mountain. But you'll notice that this is not peaked, ragged, or pointed. this mountainous form is very rounded and curved and calm and graceful and sloping. It's gentle. There's a gentleness to it. And what I get, dear Libra, for you is that there's something spiritual, spiritually aligned. There's something too about communications. Keep in mind, blue indicates fifth chakra communication pathways. And so what I get with this blue is that there's kind of this natural, organic, calm, graceful procession. And if you'll notice that big wave of blue, it arches up and around, and then it came down and it looped down, and it kind of curves down to the right side of the page. So it kind of, there's this big rounded holistic swell of communication that maybe has risen within you. Maybe something comes to you, something got inspired, maybe in August, maybe at the beginning of September. Something becomes an inspiration for you to come up and out and communicate. Okay, but that's what I'm getting here. There's something arising very large, but yet there's a calmness to it. There's a beauty to it. There's a grace and a grounding to it. It's a bit etheric because it's a bit smoky, but yet it just organically rises, and then here it comes, it falls, and it rises and it falls. So there's something very lovely about it, Libra. Okay, now it does go over the road. There's also arrows, by the way. Do you see the arrows pointing downward from the top to the bottom? That was just a further validation that indeed it is this downward journey from the hilltop down to the cityscape. But the thing about this blue mountainous organic form, this communication that wants to come through, it does go over the road. What does that mean for you? You know what it might indicate here? Because you'll notice that where that, let's say, mountain, and by the way, some of you are going to get different indications from these images, and of course you are to tap in and trust your own intuitive hits on these images. But also be open to what I'm interpreting for you as well, because I'm coming from an objective perspective with it. This was the pure channeling, and I got certain hits with this stuff. So you want to be open to what I'm bringing through, but please listen, of course, to your own intuitive wisdom about this stuff, right? Because the deep truth of this, what I'm seeing as this mountainous form, the mountainous form, because it is blue, could indicate an emotional stability. Why do I say that? Because water is emotion and water is blue, yet I'm getting this mountain here. And mountains are stable and solid and dependable and secure for the most part, right? So here it could be stable emotions welling up and calling for you to communicate, also blue. But the fact is that there's this wave of mountain coming over the road, but you're going to notice that as it intersects the road, Libra, it's halfway in between. Let's call it the mountaintop, where the road starts at the R, number 9, the Hermit, and it's in between that and the horizontal landscape line, or the horizon line of where the road meets the ground level. Okay, so there's something quite interesting. What that could indicate is that halfway through this month, and I have to tell you, on the 14th of September, we are going to be having a harvest moon. We're going to be having a full moon called a harvest full moon. And this is going to be a full moon in Pisces. And of course, Pisces is ruled by Neptune. Pisces is a water sign. So indeed, what I actually am getting for you, this is kind of what I'm getting. Halfway into the month, in fact, on the 14th, I think at the full moon, when we do have this harvest full moon at 21 degrees Pisces, I do think there's going to be something that gets triggered for you, something that gets activated, catalyzed for you, Libra, that's going to initiate the clarity, maybe, about making the move. Or it's almost like you've come halfway down the hill. the road comes halfway down. So you've started some journey about, let's say, coming out of an isolation period or coming out of a spiritual processing and assimilation period. And at this point, which I'm going to be calling now the 14th of September, then it's at that point that something might catalyze or instigate greater clarity or a greater action. Like it's almost like there's a quickening that might happen after mid-month, after this Pisces full moon. Okay. And after that point, then you end up coming down to the ground level where there's the yellow road, where there's the red activations here in the city, where there's all this human connection happening. Now, there's also these two lines underneath Libra. One is yellow, one is green. Yellow is your third chakra of ego and will. It's your identity and your persona. Underneath that is the green line of the heart chakra. This is love and compassion and openness and receptivity. So there's an area of your identity connecting with love here, that something is happening. There's a merging of who you are as a self, as an identity, as a persona, connecting with you as a heart-centered being. And you're going to be, let's say, bringing that forward in connections, maybe even with creative projects, with those red activations in the cityscape. But there's more activation, more networking, more project creation, more exchanges with people. Okay, so it's a very interesting month for you, right? More of a simplified message than some of the other signs or archetypes have gotten, but beautiful nonetheless, right? So now let's take a look at the divinatory message that came through for you. Now, I went out in nature by a river that I love here in the Northeast, and I got for you Earth Element. Earth Element. This is a palmistry deck written by Cindy Solano. This is your guidance for the month, Libra. This is your growth edge. This is the maturity point. So what is it that you are to pay attention to, grow, and evolve this month? Earth Element. Feel safe and secure, which is interesting coming from the art channeling. So this is the message that Solano writes here. Like the mighty oak tree with its roots deeply embedded in the soil, you are a child of the earth. You belong here. And I just realized something else for that art drawing. Before I continue with that, actually, let's take a look at this again, okay? You are ruled by Venus. Your ruling planet is Venus, but you are an air sign. So there's a massive mental functionality to who you are. What's interesting about this, dear Libra, is that the road here, this kind of colorless road up here with 9, the spiritual one, the humanitarian, the hermit, etc. This could be you up in your mind about a lot of things, a lot of ideas about things, a lot of orientations that you hold about things, but with no action being given. Coming down here is putting it into action. There's something about getting to work with the projects that have been ideas for you. Okay, and I think again, come September, 14th, when we have that full moon, there's going to be an activation that's going to maybe clarify for you that indeed you do need to get to work, and there is networking involved in bringing your creative ideas into manifest form for the good of humanity, because there is this number 9 humanitarian narrative that lives at the core of this month for you. Okay, now, so with regards to this earth element, feeling safe and secure, so let's go forward with this. So like the mighty oak tree with its roots deeply embedded in the soil, you are a child of the earth. You belong here. Let the earth's powerful strength assist you to weather the storms of your life. When the storm ends, the oak is still standing tall and strong. There are many ways to tap into the earth energy. Go out into nature. Take a walk amongst the trees. Absorb nature's energies. When you feel the stress of the world's demands, find yourself in the midst of nature's most glorious gifts and rise above your troubles. Now, the interesting thing is, of course, the narrative, the art narrative showed a cityscape, and a lot of activity with people and buildings. Now, this is very much talking about connecting to nature, grounding with the earth, connecting with the pulse, the Schumann resonance, of the earth, the heartbeat of the planet. So yes, there's always that. We all need to do that, right? But for you specifically, there's also the narrative of coming out of your head and into more human interaction. That was the art channeling. Here, it's about grounding yourself and feeling safe and secure. So there's both. Both are active for you. And keep in mind, the art is symbolic. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in the city, not even close. You can be anywhere. You can be connected. But there is something, Libra, about being in physical contact with people. I have to tell you that. This is about coming maybe out from being online and connecting with people to actually connecting with people. And those of you in more rural areas, out in the country or accessing nature, trust me, there's no shortage of possibilities to connect with amazing people in all kinds of situations that is definitively outside of any kind of city, literal city situation. Okay? So for you, you can see here on the palm of the hand, there's a big circle over the whole palm, and then the whole middle finger is circled as well. What you can do is over the course of this month, you can apply acupressure to your palm and to that middle finger to activate, stimulate this earth element which seeks for you to connect with it. Okay? Now, let's take a look at your astrology. You have a lot going on in the 12th house. First of all, there's a couple things to note here. You're going to notice, this is an astro.com chart. You're going to notice that the glyphs on the perimeter of the chart and all of the planetary glyphs inside the chart, they're upside down. But it's what I'm using to read your particular archetype. But the meaning is not different or lost. It's just the way the chart is looking. Okay, so just take it with a grain of salt, but the meaning is still there. For you, for the archetype of Libra, you're noticing that the stellium of planetary energy for the majority of this month is in Virgo, and Virgo is your 12th house. So for you, there's this kind of analytic, critical nature, actually, can be quite self-critical and also a bit judgmental, which is very appropriate for the archetype of Libra when you think about it, right? For Libras are all about finding balance, justice, and harmony. And for you, analytic and detail-oriented and even critical, Virgo is your 12th house of soul structure, karmic narratives, your spiritual self, the deep unconscious layers to who you are, and indeed the consciousness layer itself is the 12th house. So spiritually, there is this kind of very detailed, analytic, and even anal retentive nature to this inner soul structure to who you are. But that's where you have all this energy. So there's a lot of functionality. The Sun, Mars, Venus, Mercury. Now we are going to have some movements come at the harvest new moon. We're going to have 2 planetary moves happen. We're going to have Venus move into Libra, and we're going to have Mars or Mercury. Let me take a look. I need to confirm. Yeah, we have Mercury entering Libra and we have Venus entering Libra also on that harvest full moon. So that's going to be a big deal, because what that indicates is that the energies mid-month for you in September are going to move into your first house. Okay? So, but for you, all of this energetic is happening in this deep spiritual, this is very much the house of the hermit. 12th house is the house of the hermit. And indeed, the hermit is associated with Virgo. So very, very much for you, very deeply tied, is in fact the energetics of September. Okay? Hermit, 9th house, or hermit, 12th house. Number 9 hermit, 12th house. That's what Libra, the archetype of Libra, has activated. Now, where you have these oppositions to Neptune and Black Moon Lilith over across the way in Pisces in the 6th house indicates a couple of things. One, that in your work life, in your day-to-day patterns, in your health even, but in your day-to-day world, in your physical life, okay, there might be a little bit of wounding and delusion with regards to the wounding, about feeling like your work isn't valued by others, your work isn't valued in general, that others don't value your contribution to the work that you provide. Okay, so for Libras, there's definitely a narrative of believing a myth of your contribution is not valued. And because of that, there's all this internalized pressure, spiritual pressure, kind of existential pressure, 12th house Virgo, that might be highly, I mean, this could be a bit of self-flagellation here, Libra, okay? So there's some deep processes here where you're going to have to see clearly. There's discernment that's at hand here, okay? Now, if you do step into meditation practice, for example, and you really commit to seeing yourself clearly and being more discerning, doing self-inquiry about what you're perceiving in this situation and that situation, you're going to understand that there is major benefit for you that's activated, or a potential for major benefit that is at hand for you this month. Why? Because that stellium of planetary energies is trining Pluto, South Node, and Saturn down in your 4th house, okay, which is at the root there. So if you look at that, all those blue lines going down to the bottom of the chart in Capricorn, that's actually your 4th house there, okay? It says 10th there, but it's just a reverse chart, so just don't worry about that. But the 12th house for you is trining the transformation and the new manifestation from old toxic patterns that for you is happening in your deep emotional place. Meaning, in your emotional foundations, you are changing. You have been changing, okay? You're going through great transmutation with regards to how you feel, how you access your emotions, how you use your emotions, how you trust your emotions. There might be a bit of dogmatism that you've been feeling or experiencing over the course of the last many months, because the South Node and Saturn have been conjunct and traveling together for many months now in 2019. And this retrograded Saturn, as it's partnered up with the South Node, is really intense, very much so. This is high dogma, high rigidity, high level of self-control. For you, this is a lot of insistence energy. Like, I insist that it's my way or the highway, or I insist on keeping myself boundaried and walled off. I'm not going to open up. And in fact, I'm going to be insistent with family, because the 4th house, keep in mind, is home, property, family. So the interesting thing about the artwork, again, is that we have, there's a potential move at play here. For some of you Libras, there is a potential move, right? Because this is about, coming from one place to another place. For some of you, that's going to be a physical change. For others of you, it's more of a metaphysical change, okay? Physical or metaphysical, there's some sort of a change in your lifestyle and who you're relating with and how. But for you, this trine from all of that 12th house Virgo energy down to the long-term transit of Pluto, South Node, Saturn is helping you. So if you become self-accountable and self-responsible for your own emotional reality, and in the meantime become more spiritually discerning, and you really do self-inquiry about what you perceive is valuable or not valuable in the work that you do, in the work that you provide, in how people treat you, how do you perceive what they're doing, what are you projecting on the other? Because really the truth is you are not valuing your own work. And if you find that others are not valuing your work, it's simply a reflection of what's within. That's how the chart works. So, and by the way, for those of you really ready to understand your own story, my natal charts are on sale this month, so you can see all the links for the sales below, all right? but critical and important. It's a foundational tool here. But yeah, you have a lot of opportunity for a real benefic opening when it comes to your emotional reality, understanding yourself more clearly, becoming more self-responsible for your own narrative, for your own wound sets, for your own processes, and not projecting that on every Tom, Dick, and Harry, or even on God, or even on life itself, right? Because you're going to own the narrative. You're going to own your own perception lens, right? Let's see what else is going on. Now, you also have, from that stellium of planets in Virgo, this square down to Jupiter in your third house, Jupiter in Sagittarius third house. And that square, I think, is activating a new spiritual narrative, a new spiritual impetus to communicate, to teach, to share, to write, to speak, to create coursework. There's an impetus here, right? A spiritual impetus. Virgo is all about work. It's about health and creating healing through attending to all the details that need to be loved and attended to and seen and cared for meticulously. That's that 12th house Virgo for you. But the square that's activated so strongly in the month of September is triggering the desire to teach, the desire to educate, the desire to read and learn, the desire to network and share. In fact, that's what that's about here. That Jupiter in Sagittarius ninth house is about networking, collaborating, communicating, creating. But specifically, it's about teaching and disseminating information to others, okay? But that's what that is, beauties. Now, the other thing that you have is from Virgo 12th house stellium, you have these trines, multiple trines activated with that Uranus in the 8th house. So for you, Uranus and Taurus 8th house is juicy. And maybe I'll go more into it in next month's reading. But with regards to you for this month, there's this grand trine, Earth trine, a grand Earth trine with all of the planets in Virgo, the trine over to Uranus and Taurus, and then down at the bottom to that stellium in Capricorn. So for you specifically, 12th house, 8th house, 4th house. This is all of your internal houses, your internal processes. Your 4th house is your internal emotional processes. 8th house is your internal psychological processes. 12th house is your internal spiritual processes, okay? All these are in a grand Earth trine. There's a benefic harmonic happening. This is a benefic energy set for new growth, new clarity. Okay, so the Uranus going retrograde now, by the way. So Uranus is retrograde and it's in this 8th house Taurus for you. It can indicate that you are, let's say, understanding anew. You're reviewing things that have happened. You're reviewing things like money, finances, security, land, issues with earth, you know, the generalized narratives that are going on with the planet. But there's genius, there's insight, there's downloads coming from a review or a recontemplation of issues of safety and security, because that's Taurus. And of course, this is linking right into the divinatory card that came in for you. So there's issues that you're thinking about and that you're starting to be able to understand your deep psychological wounding stuff that's stuck in the shadowed part of the psyche, because that's 8th house as well. And also stuff happening possibly with the marital partner. So simply by the indication of this grand Earth trine, this could be benefic shifts and changes happening with the partner. Now, does it mean that it's all going to feel good? Well, not necessarily, but it does mean that there's going to be a benefic outcome. Ultimately, what's happening is for the benefit of you and indeed the partner. For some of you, there is indication that there could in fact be a great deal of transformation happening with the marriage, with the family, because you have the stellium down in the 4th house in Capricorn, connected up to Uranus in the 8th, which is changes in the marriage, and then trining all of this kind of karmic stuff. Anything in the 12th house indicates a necessary experience we must go through. In other words, karmically assigned. There's a karmic process that a lot of Libras are just naturally going through now. So you are going through a spiritual process. That's that road coming down from the R, number 9, and the artwork. You are thinking about things like, how am I going to be safe and secure? What about my money and finances? If there is change with the partner, the husband, the spouse, the wife, the one that I share resources with, how does that impact my safety? So there are these issues coming up for you, okay? Much more to say, Libra. I'll go more into all of this in next month's reading. I send you much love in the meantime for your month of September. And again, lots of sales going on. And I do invite those of you serious about your own self-clarity, self-understanding, and the desire to be free, the desire to heal, the desire to have clarity, and then participate with full understanding with your mastery arc that's part of your natural encoded blueprint. Be in touch with questions, but you can see the sales below and the links with other information. For those of you interested in weekly streams, there's a membership option. You can see the links below. And if there's anything else, you can go to the websites and take a look, okay? In the meantime, I send you much love for your month. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.